King of the Hill's 8th episode of its 14th season is arguably the story with the biggest, most lasting consequences of any released in the revival so far, with a major focus on both Kahn Supernussenpones, Senior and Junior. This is also Kahn Senior's only episode in this season, which might be seen as a good or bad thing depending on what kind of fan you talk to, but the themes of this episode can basically be boiled down to relationships, honesty, and community, and for me, it features some of my favorite individual character moments of the season. So let's dive into season 14's aptly titled 8th episode, Kahn-scious Uncoupling. And hey, if you like these breakdowns, make sure to subscribe, check out my other King of the Hill videos, and check out my uncut reaction vids to season 14 over on my Patreon. We all know how oblivious Peggy can be when it comes to how she's perceived, but one thing you do not want to be oblivious about is how you smell. That's why the sponsor of today's video is Mando. Mando creates deodorant and body wash that is clinically proven to keep you fresh and clean for up to 72 hours, and all of their products are baking soda and paraben free. Mando's starter pack is perfect for new customers. It comes with a solid stick deodorant, cream tube deodorant, 2 free products of your choice like mini body wash and deodorant wipes, and free shipping. As a special offer for viewers, new customers will get 20% off site-wide. Use my code Johnny2Cellos at shopmando.com for 20% off site-wide plus free shipping. My favorite is definitely the sweat control deodorant stick. It's simple, but it stops odor in your pits by actually blocking it, not just masking it with some other scent. And just like a carefully crafted meal at Robata Chain, every ingredient is there for a reason. My personal favorite is the Mount Fuji fragrance. It is super refreshing. Again, new customers get 20% off site-wide with our exclusive code. Use code Johnny2Cellos at shopmando.com for 20% off site-wide plus free shipping. shopmando.com. Please support the channel and tell them I sent you. Mando's got you covered. Protect your pits. Smell great doing it. Okay, so let's start by addressing the elephant in the room. Yes, Kahn was recast, and no, people are not pleased with the new performance as Ronnie Chang replaces Toby Huss.
Missed again, Hank Hill.
I have thoughts about why the performance doesn't seem to work as well for myself and many fans, but I'm going to push that discussion to the end of the video so we can focus on the actual story first. I do think it was a strange move for the writers to sideline Kahn for almost the entire season, and only bring him in for a single episode that is primarily about him and Min's marital problems. I actually quite like the episode, but I do think Kahn's absence was felt during the entire season, and his sudden reappearance made that absence feel stranger. I also think that only using Kahn in one episode that highlights that he's at such a low point also makes this a harder pill to swallow. If we had maybe seen a bit more of him outside of this one story that was focused on his marriage falling apart, I think people might have accepted the sad nature of this episode a bit more openly. I mean, even Min, for instance, gets a lot more focus across the season's episodes, and we even see little hints of her life moving forward, like the fact that she started a blog. You know, nothing major, but something more positive and optimistic that's in her life. But I also think that the main conflict of this episode is a very well-written Kahn and Min story. Of course, they would be the type of couple to try and hide the fact that their marriage has dissolved. That feels 100% in character. They still have dreams of Connie marrying Chain and connecting meaningfully to the Wasanasong family. They want to move up in the social hierarchy.
We hired Robata Chain because of Chain, not Bobby.
They feel like exactly the type of people to put on this facade, but keeping up the charade despite actually having been divorced for over a year, to the point of hosting and paying for a massive anniversary party as well, is such an intense place to go to try and maintain that social status. And their focus on appearances are very apparent throughout the episode, even going so far as to try and make sure Bill doesn't come to the party. This detail included a really natural callback to an event from the original series, an event that actually seemed to have been forgotten within the original series itself.
I still haven't forgiven him for dating my late mother. Could you?
Despite the sad nature of this episode, it is a very interesting place to take Min and Kahn. I know that there is a bit of a trend in reboots to undo happy endings that people don't like, but happy marriages slowly falling apart is a reality that is simply true to life. And I think that Kahn and Min's previously very happy marriage, being the subject of this in the reboot, creates for the exact kind of status quo shifts that have made this revival work so well. It provides ample opportunity for new storytelling, even if it sucks that we didn't didn't really get to see the events of their marriage struggles from the interim period. But I'm pretty eager to see how it might shift Kahn's direction moving forward, particularly after their marriage is eventually outed as a sham. He seems like a character who was a bit stagnant in his attempts to maintain the status quo and keep up appearances, and now that things have shifted, it will be interesting to see if they put a focus on how he moves on and finds happiness in new ways. He was always very controlling of Connie in a way that felt super self-serving, and it always seemed like he was a bit in over his head when he was sucking up to the Wasana songs, so maybe he'll find a new type of contentment without feeling the need to be motivated by these things. Maybe he'll find new meaning in his work or dating life, or maybe we'll see him and Connie connect as adults. I personally hope that it leads to him accepting Connie a little bit more for who she is. I think if I had one major criticism of this episode though, it's that it maybe doesn't actually focus on Kahn quite enough. It doesn't even have much of an arc for him within the text of the episode. It's largely facilitated by two other subplots and characters. The first being Hank, and this is where we get a lot of the comedy in this episode. Hank learns the truth about Kahn's marriage just before the anniversary and is forced to keep the secret, something Peggy takes exception to after he outed her false claims about her bowling scores, and also something she points out that he is simply very bad at.
Every time you try to lie, you clean your glasses. It was cute when you told Brian Robertson you voted for Obama, but not now.
And the other subplot and character that ties directly to Kahn's deceit and attitude here is Connie. In fact, I would argue that this episode goes a lot further to add depth to Connie's season 1 arc than Kahn. Probably one of the reasons that this episode's title, Kahn-scious Uncoupling, is actually dually referencing both Kahn Jr. and Sr. So let's dive into Connie, because that really is where the meat of this episode lies, and the added context of Kahn and Min's recently dissolved marriage goes a very long way to give us important context to some of Connie's decisions. The decision I see being questioned most is how did Connie end up with Chain after disliking him so much in the original run? And I will say, first of all, obviously people and mindsets change over time. Connie was being forcibly set up with Chain by Kahn when she was a kid, and this at least seems to be a bit more voluntary. But obviously Chain is still a huge asshole, and the question is, why would she date him now? And I think this episode pretty thoroughly explains her mindset here. She already hinted in previous episodes that she wasn't in love with Chain, just that she likes dating him in the context of their open relationship. A relationship that is frankly not very serious with each other. Not that open relationships can't be serious, but in this context, she and Chain are decidedly not serious. And I think that last part is the key here. Connie is 21 years old, and seeing her parents' relationship dissolve and become this complete charade has clearly affected how she sees relationships in general. Min points out to Connie that she and Kahn got married when they were 21 in an attempt to push her towards that same decision.
Well, Mom, have you ever thought that maybe I don't want to make the same mistakes that you did?
To me, it's clear that Connie is only dating Chain for two reasons. One, it makes things a bit easier on her parents, who really care about appearances and are obviously really struggling under the surface of their marriage. This keeps up appearances with the Wasana songs and their happy family charade. But more importantly, because Connie actually never has and never would take Chain seriously as a long-term romantic partner. Because of the trauma associated with seeing her parents' marriage dissolve, at this point, Connie is completely averse to forming the kind of bond that might actually lead her to want to get married. Dating Chain is basically a deterrent. Connie could never see Chain as marriage material. He's a really firm roadblock to prevent her from making what she perceives as the same mistake her parents made. I also think that Connie's interest in open relationships might also stem from this aversion, which kind of makes this an interesting subject as explored by the show, because funny enough, it doesn't really seem like the show is taking open relationships seriously as a concept. It's pretty clear that Connie and Chain's arrangement is not a healthy one, and ultimately its inclusion sort of just upsets all kinds of different people. I've gotten disappointed comments about how the show isn't actually showcasing a good example of an open relationship, which personally I don't think the show is trying to, but I also get so many angry comments about open relationships existing at all, which I also find funny because from the types of comments I get, people are acting like they're being forced into an open relationship themselves. Ultimately, I think people should probably just worry about their own relationships and not get worked up about other people's arrangements, but hey, you do you. The point is, I don't think the show is painting the open relationship with Chain as the right move for Connie. But the irony of Connie's decision to date Chain here is that her attempts to avoid the kind of relationship that leads to that phony facade her parents have plastered over their own relationship actually caused her to basically fully emulate that exact circumstance in her relationship with Chane.
My parents are just like Chane. They're all about appearances and...
Connie's relationship with Chane itself is a full-on charade. I think most of the time, Connie's arrangement with Chane is very low effort and easy. But here, in this big public event where she has to play the part of Chane's girlfriend in front of everyone, is where the phoniness really gets to her. There's this great moment where Connie is leadingly trying to get Chane to give Bobby credit for the great catering service they've provided, which he's too self-centered to see.
Aren't you forgetting to thank someone else who did?
The troops?
Look, Chane obviously sucks, but let's be real, he's a very funny character. This whole Bobby/Connie build has definitely been the major serialized aspect of this season, and personally, I really do think it was handled well. It's clear that Connie still likes and respects Bobby a lot, but this episode is what gives the context that shows why she simply was not looking to pursue something serious at this point in her life. And obviously, it was made very clear that Connie only saw Bobby as a serious option, not someone to string along or to pursue in an open situation, especially when she just wasn't ready for that kind of a commitment. Hence the "your marriage material cookies from Chore Money Chore Problems." But this episode uses a specific circumstance to showcase why running away from a more serious connection has its cons, pun intended. And it does this by directly comparing Bobby and Chane's reactions to learning about Connie's weird family situation with her parents. After Bobby learns the truth about Kahn and Min earlier in the episode, news that is hilariously delivered while cha-cha sliding with his parents, Bobby's first instinct is to go and comfort Connie, because of course it is. This is Bobby.
Are you okay?
Not really. But I will be.
Bobby tells Connie he would have been there for her if he'd known the truth, which is a serious contrast to how Chane reacts after everybody learns the truth.
It seems like you have a lot going on. I'm gonna give you some space and get out of here.
Now, obviously, to a degree, this is what Connie wanted from Chane. She specifically was dating Chane because he was not a person she took seriously as a partner. And so Chane's obvious neglect here was more of a wake-up call for Connie that maybe she would like something a little more supportive and meaningful. And this episode does a great job really highlighting the kind of guy Bobby is. Despite the fact that Kahn only hired Bobby because Chane co-owns the restaurant, Bobby is set on delivering them a wonderful anniversary experience. He pointedly says he wants to make sure it's great for them. And he somehow manages to tightrope walk his genuine concern for Connie without just seeming like he's jealous of Chane. He really cares about Connie's well-being. And the last few minutes of this episode close with truly 3 of my favorite moments in the entire revival season. They just absolutely hit 1, 2, 3. First, Connie confiding in Peggy. I think that while this season didn't really provide a top-tier Peggy Hill episode, it did give her a ton of really funny and lovely moments across the season, and this might be the best one. Maybe the 2 best Peggy lines in the entire season are in this one scene alone. First, when she's talking about her competitiveness with Kahn and Min.
But one thing we all did right was raise wonderful children. We tied in that.
God, this got me so good, man. What a lovely moment of connection between Peggy and Connie. Peggy obviously watched Connie grow up next door. Outside of her parents, she's got to be one of the closest relationships Connie had to an adult. And so this reaffirmation is probably really meaningful for her. And this next part hits just as hard as Connie voices her fears that she's doomed to continue to repeat her parents' mistakes.
If you decide one day that marriage is for you, Connie, you will be a great wife to a very lucky man. You are not destined to end up like your parents.
God, they really hit with these sentimental moments, and this transitions to another amazing scene immediately where Bobby shows up to bring Connie some food. This scene is a great example of why I love King of the Hill. It starts with one of my favorite comedic Bobby deliveries in the entire show.
I just broke up with Chane.
You did?
But it ends with a gesture that's just perfectly emblematic of Bobby's attitude towards Connie in her most trying time.
I could really just use a hug.
Well, I brought that too.
And if that wasn't enough, the episode closes with an absolute top-tier Kahn moment. As he packs up his stuff and prepares to finally move out of his garage, Hank and the Alley Boys show up with a 6-pack to try and give him support. Of course, Kahn is Kahn, he doesn't accept it, shutting the garage door on them, but Hank gently rolls an Alamo to him as the door closes, basically saying, even though you're shutting us out, we're still here for you. Throughout this whole episode, Kahn and Min treated the Hills really lousily. Kahn was putting down Hank despite knowing that Hank was keeping his secret. They were throwing Bobby under the bus and refusing to give him credit for his hard work. But ultimately, the Hills knew that the Suppanusimpones were going through it, and despite the way they were treated, they showed up for them when they really needed it. Peggy offering advice to Connie, Bobby being there to support her when she was struggling the most, and Hank extending an Alamo-shaped olive branch to Kahn despite their constant friction. Now, I do still have some misgivings about how much focus Kahn was given this season, but this little gesture and moment of community from Hank and the gang was so lovely, and it gives me hope that maybe they'll utilize him more moving forward. Maybe he'll integrate into the gang a little bit. Okay, so let's do it. Let's talk about the voice acting change for Kahn, with Toby Huss being replaced by Ronnie Chang. I think of all the recasts we've gotten, this is definitely the one that has been met with the most controversy. And I think most people understand this. Ronnie Chang is a very funny performer, and while he does have some Kahn-like vocalisms, his voice is very different than the Kahn we know overall.
It's nice to see you too, Chain and Connie. Comedy roast.
Kahn Suppanusimphone? Me chain was on a song.
As someone who was obviously expecting the voice to sound a bit different, I think the reason I brush up against this performance so much is less about the performance itself and more because Kahn sounds so much younger than he used to, which is especially weird when he's supposed to be older. I think I could have actually bought a vocal change in the character if he had sounded older, but it's sort of a double whammy. Oh, Kahn sounds different, and he sounds like he's even younger than he was in the original run. That's a tough couple of pills to swallow, but I do also think that they sort of did the character a disservice by, well, not putting him in the show very much. He's literally only in this episode, so it's hard for the audience to get used to a new voice and for a performer to hone in on a performance. There's just such limited screen time for it. I'm not sure if they were pointedly avoiding Kahn because of the recast or what, but I do hope he's in the show more next season. Even just in small brief appearances here and there. I think that would go a long way to warm the audience up to him and get a little bit more experience under Ronnie Chang's belt as Kahn. But I do think that the adjustment from Toby Huss to Ronnie Chang has been the most difficult transition for the fans in the new season. Speaking of Toby Huss, let's talk Dale performance while we're here. I should have mentioned in my last breakdown that that was the final Johnny Hardwick episode of the new season, and that the remainder of the show transitions over to Toby Huss as Dale. Though, even the Hardwick episodes seem to contain Huss pickups, and episode 3, Bobby Gets Grilled, was actually a full Huss performance since that was the 7th episode produced and was moved up in the release order. Obviously, it's pretty clear that Hardwick was struggling with his Dale voice when he recorded. A lot of fans thought he was actually the replacement voice. Maybe this was due to health issues, maybe he had just gotten older, but personally, I'm still really grateful we got to hear Hardwick close out his career as Dale. Even if he had lost a step or two, Hardwick is a legend, and I'm so sad we've lost him. Even if he didn't sound the same, obviously I would have drastically preferred that we get an entire revival series of Hardwick Dale performances. But honestly, I do think Huss did an excellent job as his replacement. There are just a few episodes that are 100% Huss as Dale, and I think he gets stronger with each subsequent one. And I really believe he'll continue to get stronger as he settles into the role. He was also forced to sort of try and match his performance to Hardwick with those pickups in earlier episodes, so he'll really be able to find his Dale cadence on his own as he steps into the role solo. I'm really eager to see how he sounds in season 15. Overall, despite my issues with Kahn's lack of utilization this season, and everyone's frustrations with the voice change, I think this was a really strong episode. That focus on community at the end really hits, and it of course is the most important in moving that Bobby and Connie romance forward. Between the top tier emotional beats and some hilarious sequences, this was a great episode. And that is all I've got for season 14, episode 8, Kahn-scious Uncoupling. Remember, if you like this breakdown, I've got the first 7 of the season up already, more for season 14 on the way, uncut reactions to these episodes over on my Patreon, and of course, tons more King of the Hill videos across the channel. Check out all that if you're interested, and stay tuned for more. Peace.
I stay mellow watching Johnny two cellos. He talks cartoons, he's a really cool fellow. He keeps you posted on adult cartoons. If that's what you're into, then grab a spoon and a very big bowl of your favorite cereal. Feels like Saturday morning cartoon material. Johnny two cellos, watch him on YouTube. Now enjoy this groove and bust a move.